Hey everybody, welcome to the Cards on the Table MMA podcast, episode 1. I hope your day is going well so far, and we're going to do 3 rounds today, and we'll see how it goes from there. We'll divide the show into past, present, and future sections. So we'll start with the past section, where I'll go over last week's cards, or at least what I managed to keep up with over the weekend. So we'll start by traveling back to October 18th, 2019, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we find UFC on ESPN 6 in Boston, Massachusetts. We'll start with the main and co-main events, since those were the big ticket items, and then we'll go from bottom to top of the card. So the main card, or the main event of this fight, was number 4 ranked Dominic Reyes versus Chris Weidman, who's ranked number 8 at middleweight, and this was his first fight at light heavyweight moving up. So this fight, Weidman did his usual thing where he looks good for however long, and then Reyes, with his just perfectly timed counter, drops him with a, straight left counter, and knocks him out with a follow-up ground and pound. So this fight, really, it was the most Chris Weidman fight you could have, and I mean, he's on 1-4 in his last 5 fights since he beat Anderson Silva, and I mean, all his losses have been brutal. You got the one with Rockhold, where really neither of them was ever the same after that, and yeah, so Weidman, for his next fight, honestly, I'd just like to see him retire. I know it's not an original opinion, and people have been saying it for a while. I've been saying it for a while, but he's just taken so much damage. And at the end, during his interview, he goes, "I'll be back," and I just sat there like, no, please don't. And then Dominic Reyes, this was a risky fight for him because he was ranked number 4. Fights Chris Weidman, who's always going to be dangerous. You know, he's got not heavy hands, but he's got okay power. He's obviously a great wrestler. Pretty well put together game, but yeah, he's a glass cannon, as we found out again. But Dominic Reyes looked good, great takedown defense. Weidman did take him down, but Reyes popped right back up and then landed the counter. So what's next for him? Probably John Jones, right? I mean, what else is there? Light heavyweight isn't exactly. I mean, John Jones has beat all the contenders that were coming up since he came back from another suspension, and we'll talk more about John Jones later in the episode. But I think that's about it for the main event. There's really not much to say. The fight was 2 minutes long? This basically, Weidman went straight for the takedown, got him down, Reyes popped back up, Weidman lunges in with a right, Reyes counters, and then that was pretty much it. So the co-main event was the rematch of Yair Rodriguez, ranked number 7, versus number 8 ranked Jeremy Stephens at featherweight. So yeah, this was the rematch from the eye poke, which was supposed to be the main event at Mexico City. Kind of disappointed that this one wasn't 5 rounds, and also it's at sea level, so this is a pretty different fight than what the main event would have been. Jeremy Stephens also wore eyeglasses at the weigh-in, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, Yair almost found a way to make Stephens likable, which, for those who don't know, Jeremy Stephens is kind of a piece of shit. Him and his buddy, I guess, almost killed the guy, but beating him up at the bar, at a bar. This was a year or 2 ago. But yeah, Jeremy Stephens, piece of shit, and Yair still almost made him likable. Yeah, we're not going to focus on that too much. So first round, Yair going crazy with the kicks as usual. Actually trying to do a lot of trips in the clinch. Stephens loading up a lot, which allowed Yair to use his speed, and he started with the leg kicks and, most importantly, the kick to the body. Yeah, just combinations. He would hit the head and then really fast kicks to the body, and then Yair actually dropped him with a jab as Stephens was coming in with about 40 seconds left in the first round, but Stephens gets up and manages to recover. Second round was pretty much more of the same, and Yair with a lot more flashy kicks lands one. Stephens folds, but Yair he has the worst ground and pound I might have ever seen. I mean, he does this thing where he just flurries his hands. Think of like Garfield eating lasagna. That's kind of what it looks like. And most of them, even those that were landing, were kind of just like, I don't know. It's like you're slapping him with like the meat under your on the side, on the pinky side of your hand. It's like you're slapping him with that. Like, it's not bad damage to take. So Yair flurries on the ground and pound. He did it against BJ Penn as well. But BJ Penn obviously is 40 plus years old or whatever. So might actually hurt him. But yeah, Stevens survives. Oh yeah, Yair tried a few submissions, but Stevens is really hard to submit when he's on his back. Stevens actually ends up winning the rest of the round after that. For the last 2 minutes, Stevens, I believe, gets a takedown. Yeah, he gets a takedown. But yeah, I really think Yair could have stopped the fight if he went for a more, I guess, efficient style of ground and pound, if you want to put it nicely. We'll just stick with efficient style of ground and pound. He probably could have finished him. Third round, Yair lands a groin shot, but Stevens wins this round pretty handily. Stevens also wanted to keep going after the groin shot, which I always like to see. Obviously, I don't never blame people for taking time after a groin shot, because as someone who's been kicked there and taken things there, it's not, I would need the 5 minutes, but he keeps going, he gets a takedown, and basically holds him down the whole round. Okay, groin and pound, but it was never close to a finish, really. Stevens just does not have the urgency to get in to be a reliable top 5 fighter. He sits there, and Yair is controlling his posture, keeping him close so he can't land that heavy groin and pound, and Stevens just kind of accepts it. He just lets it happen. So Rodriguez wins by unanimous decision. All cards were 29-28, though. I think there's an argument for 29-27 just because of how close he was to the finish. But yeah, I'm okay with the 29-28 scorecard. So we'll circle back around to the prelims. First round of the heavyweight fight between Tanner Boser versus Daniel Spitz. Now this fight was not close, really. I mean, if you look at it was a 3-round fight. It went to a decision for Boser. If you look at the significant strikes, it's 93-32. And Boser was just twice as efficient, landed and threw more strikes, had some okay combinations, was kind of throwing the same thing all fight. Spitz looked jacked as hell. I mean, does it say how tall he is? Can't find out how tall he is, but dude is huge. His nickname is Daddy Longlegs, which I think is very fitting. But yeah, he was not able to find his range, couldn't establish the jab, and even when he did, couldn't build off of it, and Boser was also working off Spitz's jab, which I thought was pretty cool. So it was Boser by a unanimous decision, which I think is totally fair. Next fight on the card was Brendan Allen versus Kevin Holland at 185 pounds, middleweight. This fight, it was kind of weird. Holland just has no killer instinct. He can be entertaining at points, but he kind of like this Jeremy Stevens, where he'll look good, have someone hurt, or at least have an advantage, and just is not able to capitalize. Allen, he came off the Ultimate Fighter, I believe, or it might have been Dana White's Contender Series. He looked confident on the ground, but looked very, very timid on the feet. He ends up winning Brendan Allen by rear naked choke in the second round. Looked really confident and good on the ground, really able to utilize his advantages, I guess, but unlike Holland on the feet. So, yeah, it was kind of a weird fight. So the next fight was Sean Brady versus Court McGee. So Sean Brady was the home favorite against Court McGee, who's a veteran. This fight was at welterweight. Sean Brady weighed in a few fights he weighed in, I think, 167.5 pounds. So, pretty interesting. Didn't look much smaller. This was a pretty close fight, and I think it could have gone either way. Brady faded hard, I thought, in the first round. If he can he's got really good speed. Like, he was boxing him up in the first round. And I thought if he can maintain that speed throughout the fight, then he'll have this in the bag. But of course, he gassed really, really hard, and got really outworked in the last round. So in my opinion, I think there's a pretty good case for Court McGee winning this fight, but the judges gave it to the hometown guy, Sean Brady, and there was actually a 30-27 for him, even though that was not a 30-27 fight. Let me pull up the stats real quick. Did they break this down by round? So Brady actually landed more total strikes and more significant strikes. So fair enough. Round 3, it was, sorry, I'm just looking real quick. At distance, 50-42 for McGee, 2-0 in the clinch. Basically, if you take out the first round, Court McGee landed a lot more, or a good amount more. 30-27 doesn't make any sense to me, basically. But Brady wins by unanimous decision. I believe it was 2 29-28s and then the 30-27, which, yikes. The next fight, Boston Salmon versus Randy Costa. Boston Salmon, pound for pound best name maybe in the sport. He's got a pretty good case for it. This fight was at men's bantamweight. Boston Salmon just came off. He's so aggressive, but he has no chin. Loves to swing and bang. But just every time he got clipped basically with one of the first punches. Randy Costa with, I think it was a 1-2, just spammed it over and over. And Salmon, apparently he was a boxer and a pretty good one, but no, he did not look it. Had zero head movement, just 8 punches. Maybe he loves, which don't work in MMA. Costa with a good enough finishing instinct to end the fight, but that's really not saying much. Boston Salmon, he's gonna get cut, and if he's not, it's only because he trains with Max Holloway. Yeah, so Costa wins by round 1 TKO. Another funny thing about this fight, not really funny, it's just kind of sad. Boston Salmon, he didn't actually go to the ground. I believe it was Herb Dean pulled Costa off of him before he fell down, which I think was a totally fair decision, given how lopsided the fight was. Pulled him off. Salmon immediately protests the stoppage and then trips over his own leg. So, yeah, not the best look. But yeah, it's just Boston Salmon needs to be cut. Sean Woodson versus Kyle Bochniak. Now, this fight, super interesting. Now, Sean Woodson, I believe, was his first fight in the UFC. This fight was at men's featherweight. It's 145 pounds. Sean Watson is 6'2" and a half and razor thin, super thin, zero body fat on him, versus Kyle Bochniak, who is not the best fighter and was made to look like a really bad fighter. So Woodson looked, I almost want to say like a Gustafsson style, like a early Gustafsson, where he is lots of movement, super lanky, yeah, lots of footwork. And this was, again, another fight where I thought, if he can keep up this cardio, he will dominate this fight. And oh my god, he definitely did. Ends up winning by unanimous decision. Bochniak just got outworked. I mean, he looked so rudimentary. I mean, his wasn't even able to land any combinations. Woodson mixing it up with the body, knee. Oh, he does this thing where, to prevent Kyle taking him down, which he was already having trouble with, he'll throw an uppercut and a knee behind it. And I thought that was super interesting. I'm sure that someone will find a counter for it eventually, but against someone like Kyle Bochniak, super, super good. Used his range extremely well. Kyle Bochniak, he did this against Magomed Sharipov as well as against Zabit in the last round. He does this thing where he was walking him down, flexing, but he's not doing anything. He'll do that. So he would do that, walk all cocky, walk up to him, jab, go straight for a takedown, and then get stuffed. And then he'll like eat a jab or a knee on the way in and just keeps going. I'm like, it only works when you're winning, you know? It only works when you're winning. But anyway, yeah. And I don't know, Kyle Bochniak, he'll probably be used for another up-and-comer, I guess. But yeah, I'm really excited to watch Woodson fight again. He has the potential to be a contender for sure. And I'd love to see Sean Woodson against anybody, to be honest with you. So the next fight is Molly McCann versus Diana Belbita at women's flyweight, so 125 pounds. This fight, it's just women's flyweight is really not that good. I think Meatball McCann is huge, and she sits on everything she throws, and yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Just super planted and just wings it from the ceiling or the floor, whichever is closest. So, I mean, she ends up winning the fight. You might by unanimous decision. First round was somewhat close. She got a good takedown and some okay ground and pounders because she was so much bigger. Yeah, that's really all I want to say. Both fighters slowed down a lot. By the end of the fight, Belbita, tough, absorbed a lot of punishment. Yeah. McCann finished out stronger, so she deserved the unanimous decision, I agree. Next up, we have Charles Rosa versus Manny Bermudez at men's flyweight. Bermudez comes in 2 pounds overweight. Oh wait, this fight was at featherweight, sorry. Not flyweight. Bermudez comes in at 148 pounds, 2 pounds over the weight limit. Rosa coming off almost a 3-year layoff. Yeah, this was another weird fight. A lot of weird fights on this card looking back. Rosa looked really timid on the feet. Bermudez gets a takedown and has him like squished up against the fence and just lets himself get armbarred pretty much. Rosa looked comfortable on the ground. That's where he said he wanted to be after the fight. But yeah, he squished up against the foul, managed to lever an armbar. I mean, no one was really expecting it because Charles Rosa, he scooted his hips out for it, looked to get it, but the arm was not deep. I mean, his hip was barely on the elbow, and Bermudez verbally taps, and it did not look that tight, but Bermudez verbally taps. I'm not going to blame him for it. I'm sure a guy who wanted to be on the ground was good there. So I don't know anything about these guys besides what I saw. And yeah, the commentators were super confused at first, as was pretty much everyone watching, I'd imagine. So yeah, Rosa wins by round 1 submission with the armbar from bottom. Now we move on to the main card. Let me just get a sip of water real quick. So the first fight on this card was Deron Winn, Mini DC, versus Darren Stewart. This fight was at men's middleweight, so 185 pounds. Winn, despite being 5'6", comes in at 2.5 pounds overweight, so that's pretty disappointing. DC was pouring hard for him, but also he was being fair, he was being critical. Basically, the story of this fight was Winn was implementing sort of that AKA fence grinding style, that cage wrestling, but he was missing the punches on the way up. So people like Habib or DC, they'll not only lean on you and weigh on you as you're getting up from the fence, but they'll also land punches because they're in an advantageous position. They usually have one of your hands or your legs or both tied up. But Winn wasn't doing that, which I thought was very strange. And Winn gassed hard in this fight. Stewart faked it. I'm sure he looked tired, but he was also bouncing around a little bit. Winn lands a takedown in the last round to try and secure it, but again, doesn't do anything. Stewart goes for a last-second guillotine, but doesn't have enough time. The result was Stewart by split decision. I think the fight could have gone either way, but let me look at the strike differential again real quick. If I remember, it was in favor of Stewart. Let me just check that real quick. Oh yeah, so Stewart lands 57 strikes to Darren Winn's 29. So Cruz was saying, he got kind of butthurt. He was saying like, so that's a statement to everyone else on the card. Even with 5 minutes of control time, you can't win a fight. But even if you control the fight for 3 minutes, Darren Stewart lands twice as many strikes basically. So personally, I'm okay with that. Lands more strikes at distance, in the clinch, and even lands one more strike on the ground than Winn. That's some decent elbows from the bottom. So does Tony Ferguson. I don't know, 3 to 9 elbows or 9 to 3 elbows, I guess you could call them, that are legal. landing on top of the head. Um, so yeah, I guess I agree with the decision. Split decision is fair. The next fight you have number 12 ranked Macy Barber versus number 15 ranked Jillian Robertson at women's flyweight. This fight was pretty even until it wasn't. Basically, Macy Barber just starts swinging. She defends a takedown and then just goes off on Robertson and eventually gets the TKO in the first round. Kind of a weird fight. Some people were kind of iffy about the stoppage, and I guess I agree. But also, Robertson was not really defending herself, and she wasn't really defending herself. She was just doing high guard and trying to roll with what she could. Yeah, honestly, I don't really care about this fight. Macy Barber calls out Paige Van Zant, which every fighter should do, really. I forgot who said it. I think it was the Co-Main Event podcast, or maybe it was Jack Slack. But they were saying, you'll never get a better out to skill ratio than Paige Van Zant, because she's one of the most popular female fighters still. She's like from the first generation, so a lot of people know about her, but she's also not that great of a fighter. She's tough as nails, and you can never take that from her, but she's not that great of a fighter. But yeah, Paige Van Zandt got all butthurt about it, called out like everyone in the division except Macy Barber. I don't even know. I don't pay attention to that stuff too much, but yeah. So next fight you have Joe Lozon versus Jonathan Pierce. This fight, Joe Lozon's comeback fight. A lot of people think he's over the hill, fighting at lightweight, but he's also a fan favorite. He's on our MMA all the time, so I always pull for him. He's coming off an 18-month layoff. Basically, this fight never really got going because Joe Lozon advanced, landed a huge right hand, wobbled Jonathan Pierce. Joe Lozon gets a trip straight into full mount, and then he gets in this really interesting position. So, as Jonathan Pierce is turning around to give up his back to get out of full mount, because you can either buck, or you can, to create space, or you can give up your back to get out of full mount, right? He leaves out his right arm, and Joe Lozon gets like a super deep half Nelson that was just wrenching the shoulder. Like, it was up. His shoulder was almost on like his spinal column. It was pretty crazy, and just pounds him with right hands in the right side of the head. And Pierce can't even turn his head, so it hits the back of his head. And Joe Lozon just is against the fence in this half Nelson position and just wailing on him. And the fight had to get stopped because the half Nelson was so deep and that shoulder was so cranked. There's no way he was getting out of that. It's good shit for Joe Lozon. I think he said he was going to consider if he wanted to keep fighting, which, fair enough. It's just, when people are over the hill, you always kind of root for them to stop before it's Chuck Liddell or someone like that again. So, yeah, it's his choice, though, so we'll see. He looked good, even though the competition wasn't great. So, yeah. Next fight on the card, I think this is the last one we'll be going over. Yeah, it was Greg Hardy versus Ben Sassoli. Another Greg Hardy fight. And when I say it was a Greg Hardy fight, this was the quintessential Greg Hardy fight. It was against Ben Sassoli at heavyweight, obviously. Hardy did not look good. He looked okay in the first round. He hit him with a jab, a few meaty leg kicks, but anyone at heavyweight who can throw a kick is gonna look good. It looks like he eye poked Sicily in the first round, but nothing came of it. Hardy gassed hard after the first round. Kept landing leg kicks, but that was pretty much it. And then, okay, so Hardy gasses hard, right? And then, between the second and third round, sits down in his corner, asks for his inhaler. I guess there's those guys in the suits. He asked them, "Hey, can I use this? It's USADA approved." Uses it, and they do the third round. Hardy gets the unanimous decision, and thank God this fight gets overturned. Pretty much the next day, so it's what is it? No contest. That's the word I was looking for. So this is Hardy's second no contest in like 6 fights. So, yeah, that's cool. He had that illegal knee. Oh, and I can't remember the fighter's name, but had that illegal knee. Got him DQ'd. and now gets DQ'd for using an inhaler, so just staying in character. Love it. So that's going to wrap up our past section. So now we're going to travel back to October 24th, where this is being recorded. And this is just a section where we go over news and see what's up. So let me just get another sip of water here. So first bit of news, I got 3 pieces for you here. We got Greg Hardy. Speaking of Greg Hardy, he's going to replace Junior Dos Santos against Alexander Volkov at UFC Moscow on December 9th. So, Junior Dos Santos, I don't know the exact reason, but Hardy looking for the quick turnaround, goes up against Alexander Volkov. So, this means one of 2 things. This means the Greg Hardy train, I don't know if you can call it a hype train, but whatever the opposite of a hype train is either going to get derailed, or Volkov is just going to get Derek Loosed again. I don't know, I can't see a scenario where Hardy wins this. I mean, we'll go over this next week, I believe, but Hardy did not look good, and Sassoli is a regional heavyweight, and Hardy even had his inhaler to help him out, so I don't even know. So, second bit of news we got is Randy Couture walks himself to the hospital, and he's having a heart attack. He's age 56. Hospital says he's gonna, or his girlfriend said he's fine, he'll be okay. It just sucks, 56 is so young to have a heart attack like that. But yeah, he seems to be recovering well. His girlfriend said it was because he had, quote, naturally but unusually thick blood, which I thought was pretty funny. Because, yeah, naturally. Sure. Sure, buddy. Okay, so I said we were going to talk about John Jones, as much as I really don't want to. Tony Ferguson called out John Jones. Let me read the tweet for you guys. It says, a lot of shit talk at Johnny Bones. You want to play again like we did in college? I bumped up 2 weight classes and I'll do it again. Growth, you want to play chess? I'll be your Huckleberry. Got you in 2 Neanderthal. Talk to your pops and he knows who's champ. Hashtag ankle pick. Hashtag David versus Goliath. Yeah, and then Jones responds in the John Jones way, I guess. He says, wait, when did this beef start? I thought we were cool. You over there feeling suicidal, Tony? So, Jones keeps it classy like always. I mean, this call-out didn't really make sense because Tony Ferguson implies they wrestled in college. But yeah, I did a little bit of research, not too much, but it looks like they never did. And I mean, they're in MMA they're 3 weight classes apart, so in wrestling they're probably even more. So, I mean, they did both win a national title in 2006, in different weight classes, obviously. But hey, I mean, I would watch it. Alright, so let's travel to the future. So, it's Saturday, October 16th, 2019, at the nice and convenient time of 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and UFC on ESPN Plus 20 is just beginning. So I'm only going to be watching the main card, A, because I'm not waking up at 2 a.m., and B, I do not really care about a lot of these fights, to be honest with you. It's not a great card. Don't get me wrong, there's some interesting fights, but I don't think this is as good as 2 fight nights ago. That was a really good card. The main card is pretty good, but the prelims, I don't really care. So I think I'm just gonna go over the main card. So, the first fight on the main card is a welterweight bout between Muslim Salikov versus Laureano Staropoli. I'm not familiar with either of those guys, to be honest with you. Muslim Salikov is a -50 favorite. And that's really all I have to say about it, to be honest with you. I'm super not familiar with these guys. So next fight, you have Cyril Gane versus Dantali Mays. Cyril Gane he's only 4-0. Just came off a win 2 months ago, less than 2.5 months ago. So he's going for that kickboxing schedule. He's a heavyweight, he's 28 years old, and he's just transitioning to MMA, and His first, what did he win by? It was arm triangle choke. So that fight was super weird. Basically, the guy he fought gassed. What was his name? Rafael Posoa. He gassed in like 2 minutes and basically gave Ciryl the arm triangle, and Ciryl wins. Yeah, round one arm triangle. He's fighting a guy named Dontali Mays, who I'm not familiar with. Looks like he's coming from the Contender Series. But yeah, I would not bet against Ciryl. He's got serious power, and apparently he's got submission skills. The next fight is Beneil Dariush versus Frank Camacho. I know both these guys are pretty popular, but I'm honestly not super familiar with them. This fight is going to be at lightweight. So both these guys, yeah, pretty popular. Frank Camacho is the slight underdog. He's plus 110. Beneil Dariush is minus 140. Beneil Dariush is on a 2-fight winning streak after a loss, drawn a loss. Yeah, after losing to Alexander Hernandez last year, since he's gone 2-0. Frank Camacho coming off 2 losses from Drew Dober, Geoff Neal, and then he's coming off a win against Nick Hind. Oh yeah, I do remember that fight. And then the co-main, here we go. So you got Michael Johnson versus Stevie Ray. Michael Johnson back at lightweight after losing to Josh Emmett. A fight in which he looked good for 2.5 rounds, and then just got flatlined. Michael Johnson is just the most hit or miss fighter. He's a moderate favorite, minus 260. These are all according to Tapology. I'm not super familiar with most of these guys, so I'm just reading it. Going up against Stevie Ray, who is coming on. He's 1-3 in his last 4 losses to Paul Felder, Cajun Johnson, and Leonardo Santos, and they're winning against Jason Ayari. These guys, yeah, I mean, it's good to see Johnson at lightweight again. I think his speed translates very well there. I do not know a lot about Stevie Ray, though, to be honest with you. So we'll move on to the main event. Ben Askren versus Damian Maia. A grappler's dream, really. I mean, this fight is obviously a welterweight fight. Both these guys probably on the downslope of their career. This fight is particularly interesting to me. So Maia is on a 2-fight winning streak after losing a bunch of fights against all the wrestlers. So back to back, he fought Tyron Woodley in that title fight, Colby Covington, and then Kamaru Usman. So that's basically the worst fights for him. Guys who are competent strikers and great wrestlers who are going to be able to stop the takedown, basically. So, and obviously Ben Askren coming off that flying knee loss to Masvidal 3.5 months ago. So this fight is super intriguing to me because Maia, his Achilles heel has always been wrestlers, just basically guys who can stop the takedown and stop it from going to the ground, right? You know, you think guys like Anderson Silva, who are good at stopping the takedown, good enough at the distance control, and good enough defensively. Ben Askren, obviously, he's not going to get taken down by Damian Maia, but one thing that is interesting is Askren, he's going to be the worst striker. This might be the first time since he's joined the UFC Damian Maia will be the better striker. But more importantly, Ben Askren wants to fight on the ground because that's where he's most comfortable. I know he said at some point that he was going to work on his striking. He's not going to be better at striking than Maia. I mean, his striking was so rudimentary against Lawler. He does this, I don't even know what you want to call it. It's sort of like, yeah, you're ground and pound, but that's how he strikes all the time. So it's gonna go to the ground because Maia, I don't think, will be able to stop the takedown. He's not known for his movement. He's a very stiff striker. I know that for us, Javi has talked about that, how he's like a truck. Like, he doesn't have that explosive movement. Ben Askren will be able to take him down. The real question about this fight is, it's sort of a two-sided question. It's can Askren keep him down, and it's can Maia work his magic from the bottom? Because obviously working the bottom from in MMA is a lot harder than jiu-jitsu. Damian Maia is what he's known for, though. I mean, he's one of the guys who has made jiu-jitsu work in MMA. these are both purist fights, so this is sort of an old school fight. Yeah, this fight is so interesting to me. I'm just really curious to see mostly curious to see how Maya does, because we know what Ben Askren is going to do. We have a pretty good idea of how good he is at it. One thing to consider is Ben Askren held down Douglas Lima, who is obviously not as good at jiu-jitsu as Maya, but also a much better striker. So, overall, it's just, this fight's going to come down to what does Maya want to do, and how good is he at doing it. I mean, he's almost 42 years old, so cardio might be a factor. Ben Askren's 35. Yeah, this is a great fight for both of these guys, because Ben Askren, he's not going to take a shitload of damage in this fight. And I saw a bunch of people are saying, like, Ben Askren, he must have taken the most amount of damage UFC fighter. Maybe, actually, Boston Salmon might give him a run for his money there, but that's really the only fighter I can think of who's even close. And that's not a crowd you want to be in, because obviously the Robbie Lawler fight, he does win it by bulldog choke, and the first round of that fight was 2 minutes, and he probably got knocked out and then woken up again. And then obviously the Jorge Masvidal fight, fastest knockout in history. Yikes. So the odds for this fight are kind of surprising. Ben Askren is the -165 favorite. Damian Maia 135 underdog. So it's close, but honestly I would expect it to be closer. I think people are just expecting Askren to be able to hold down Maia, which I think is totally fair. But yeah, we'll see, man. I'm excited for this fight. Honestly, I'm going to go with Maia. I'm not a huge fan of doing predictions, but I got Johnson in his fight, Cyril Gane in his fight, and Maia, because I think he is going to be able to be good enough. The thing for Askren is, can he stay out of danger, basically? Can he avoid being swept? Because if he's on his back, I don't think that's good for him. I don't know if he'll be able to get out of that without taking a lot of damage. But yeah, we'll see. So I'll see you guys next week for this episode, with me in this episode, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.